Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, it's going to be a little bit different as I want to take a look at some of the announcements that Trudeau was making on Monday during his Liberal cabinet retreat in Halifax by showing him how broken Canada actually is, irregardless of what he likes to say, by going over some of the mainstream media coverage of the events that are happening in our country just over the past few months. Now, with that being said, there is going to be quite a lot of array of different clips that we're going to be going through. I might be talking here and there, but I wanted to do this so that nobody could think that I'm clipping some fringe alternative media source or whatever the case may be. This is the mainstream media reporting on these things. So without further ado, let's get into his announcement first, and then I'll just roll into it.
The decision to be there to invest in Canadians has left Canada with one of the strongest economies in the world at a very difficult time.
We begin this morning with a concerning new look at how many Canadians are struggling with the rising cost of living. 1 in 4 people living in poverty in this country. Those numbers coming from Food Banks Canada. It found the poverty rate is actually higher than the 10% estimated by Stats Can using metrics out of Europe. The report says 25% of Canadians cannot afford 2 or more household essentials, putting them below the poverty line. That includes 30% of 18 to 30-year-olds, 44% of single-parent families, and 42% of renters.
And we believe that using that strong economy to support Canadians in responsible ways is the best way to build the future. That's what we're focused on.
A new report suggests Canada doesn't have enough childcare spaces available to meet families' needs. The study by the Childcare Resources and Research Unit found that 29% of parents are battling for just one spot. Advocates say part of the problem likely stems from more parents adding their names to waiting lists because they can now afford it with the government's plan for $10 a day childcare.
One Toronto mom tells me she may have to extend her mat leave, saying childcare is impossible to find.
It's been hectic. Stressful, to say the least.
First-time mom Samantha Rodriguez has been looking for childcare since finding out she was pregnant with little Oliver. So how many wait lists are you on at this point?
About, I want to say about 15 to 20 at this point.
We're not focused on culture wars, on complaining that everything is broken, that, going off on strange tangents that, quite frankly, Canadians are scratching their heads about. That's not the way to connect with Canadians. That's not the way to deliver what Canadians are asking for. So we're going to stay focused on the work that needs doing over the next year as we approach the next election, to deliver for Canadians, to help people through, and to remind them why this is the very best country in the world.
Meanwhile,
this year's celebrations come as a new survey has found a decline in Canadian pride. More than a third of Canadians say they feel less proud to be Canadian than they did 5 years ago. Canadians were also asked if they agree with Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre that, quote, Canada is broken. 70% of them say they strongly or somewhat agree. Agreement is higher among younger Canadians.
Interesting. 70% of Canadians think that Canada is broken, and it's higher within the younger Canadian demographic, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is this not the ones that you've been trying to target since you got into power?
For me, leaning on young people and bringing them in 2015 was a hugely important part of what shaped my entry into politics. And the irony is now, 10 years later, I look at those young people who got involved with me the first time. They're now in their late 20s, and they're saying, I can't afford a home. Like, I thought you were supposed to be fixing this. And
I must be mistaken about that. But let's move on away from these programs that you've decided to implement, and let's look at the actual infrastructure of Canada itself.
This is what people in downtown Montreal's East End woke up to. A geyser erupted around 6 a.m., blasting so much water into the air it flooded streets, including a main artery, paralyzing rush hour traffic.
A boil water advisory is in effect for some neighborhoods in Midland tonight. The Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit issuing the advisory for the east pressure zone of the town following a significant water main break. The health unit says the advisory will remain in place until further notice as repairs are underway.
We have no water. My business is shut down.
City crews are on scene repairing a new water main break in Calgary's Montgomery that happened Friday evening, just 1 block away from the location of the massive water rupture from June 5th. The new break isn't connected to the old Bears Paw feeder main break that forced the city into water restrictions for weeks on end.
Just past 7 o'clock here on your Thursday, and happening now, a major water main break in the Northwest has led to citywide water restrictions.
The city has enacted its municipal emergency plan. You may have gotten an alert on your phone or on our broadcast here. It means not showering or bathing. Do not wash dishes or run appliances that use water like dishwashers and washing machines.
24 hours ago, this spray park at South Glenmore Park sounded like this, but now the taps are silent.
It's a little bit of a shame that they can't have it for the kids here on their beautiful day, but you take what comes with the situation.
As of Monday, the city entered stage 4 outdoor water restrictions. Now, using city water for washing your car or watering lawns and gardens is banned. The stricter rules come as crews prep to start repairs to the Bears Paw feeder main along 33rd Avenue. The feeder main needs to be taken offline for the next month, and the city will rely heavily on the Glenmore water treatment plant to feed the city starting Tuesday. They're asking Calgarians to limit water use to 450 million litres a day.
If we don't reduce our water use and demand exceeds what the system can produce, the underground water storage reservoirs will eventually run dry.
That could lead to a drop in water pressure and risk the safety of the supply.
Contaminants can enter the system, potentially resulting in a boil water advisory for areas served by the depleted underground reservoir.
So limit indoor water use by at least 25%, flushing every other time or taking shorter showers.
All those clips that you just saw were from Calgary and Montreal, basically opposite sides of the country, yet have been dealing with this water main issue for the past 2 or 3 months, I would say. And Calgary in particular, which we have covered before on the channel, their pipe has a 100-year lifespan and has only reached half of it, 50 years, and have decided to go kaput. So very strange things. I'm sure there would be other areas of the country that have also been having water main issues that we haven't heard about. Like Midland, for example, that one just happened in Barrie. They have the boil water advisory. Anecdotally, my mother in the GTA, her area has had water main issues. She's either had to fill up the tub or boil water as well in order to, use it for cooking, drinking, whatever the case may be. And the GTA as well, their infrastructure has not been taken care of, because every few years when there's a heavy bit of rain, the DVP floods, and they make it sound like this is the first time it's ever happened, and they're so surprised by the looks of all the flooding in the DVP. And now this year Mississauga was also hit with the rain, and their infrastructure wasn't able to drain it all. Take a look at this.
Torrential rainfall causes mass chaos across the GTA today. Roads flooded, cars stranded, and more than 100,000 customers without power.
And then take a look at this, the DVP. Look at it. It looks more like a river than a highway. It's still closed in both directions because of the extreme flooding.
And the flooding also impacting people trying to get home by public transit. We'll take you live inside Union Station. Our extensive coverage begins right now.
Major flooding was seen in Mississauga. This footage shared by the Mississauga Fire Department shows a deluge of water in the area of Dundas and Queen Frederica Street. Drivers had to be stopped at the light so they couldn't try to drive through the water. Credit Value Conservation has also issued a flood warning, warning all people to avoid culverts, bridges, and dams.
Watch as fire crews tightly hold on to a man who became trapped in knee-deep water as it rushed through this Mississauga intersection on Saturday. It was one of the many dramatic and frantic rescues over the weekend as localized flooding submerged neighborhoods in the GTA.
The water was probably 2, 3, 4 feet above the actual road itself. The torrential downpour continued through the weekend, with portions of Highway 410 forced to shut down as water overflowed the medians and submerged several vehicles. At one point, emergency responders rescued the occupants of 5 vehicles who became trapped, while other crews floated down the roadway, clearing blocked catch basins to help the water recede.
Yet if you were to listen to the mayor of Toronto, she wouldn't say that it's basically the infrastructure that needs to be updated or fixed, maybe bigger basins, anything like that. She thinks it's people's large driveways.
If you're talking about long-term mitigation effort, providing incentives for homeowners and for people that have big parking space because the stormwater are not running off properly, as the ground is not absorbing the rain. As a result, the runoff is severe and it causes even more flooding.
You hear that, guys? It's your very large parking spaces. But if we move away from the GTA and we go again to the country as a whole, well, what just recently happened? We had the railway strike, and now we have potential pilots striking as well.
Workers at Canada's 2 major railways are on the brink of a strike at the same time. That means all the goods that make their way through the country by rail will stop, with no real alternative.
One word, catastrophic. There has never been a rail strike where both carriers went on strike at the same time.
The economic impact would be catastrophic, quite frankly. It's a very unprecedented situation for us.
Air Canada has the ability to stop this. They have the ability to prevent flight cancellations. They just have to finally come to the bargaining table and actually present an offer that reflects the value we bring to this airline.
Air Canada pilots held informational pickets across the country Tuesday after the union voted 98% in favor of a strike mandate. 600 pilots lined the walls of YVR in Vancouver.
Today marks a very significant day on the calendar for us. It marks the end of conciliation and the start of our 3-week or 21-day cooling off period, at which point, at the end of it, we may be eligible for strike action. Air Canada may very well lock us out as well.
Now again, we're just taking the last few months of coverage, which in my opinion is being pretty generous because we could go back, find a lot more. But just in these few months, that's water restrictions, supply chain restrictions, potential travel restrictions, which is the freedom and movement of Canadians. And my biggest fear would be next, I don't know, foreign interference.
More fallout over a bombshell intelligence report that says there are MPs who are willingly working with foreign actors, and there are now growing calls on Parliament Hill to start naming names.
Canadians have a right to know who and what is the information. Who are they?
But the Liberals are accusing the Conservatives of acting in bad faith, knowing intelligence details cannot be made public.
Oh, right. Yes, I totally forgot about that. Well, what about housing? Housing shouldn't be broken, right? They've been working so hard on that situation basically the whole time they've been in power, right?
It's outrageous, of course.
Kevin Costain, a former small landlord, talking about tenants who don't pay all their rent but can't be evicted for months. Like this man, Herman Funyapi. Yvonne Folks said he owed her more than $22,000 in back rent. She and her husband wanted to return to their home but can't because he won't leave.
It is very challenging and it's depressing. It's hard.
Funyapi hasn't paid rent since last fall, drives an expensive truck, owns his own company. Efforts to evict him haven't succeeded.
So why I have to leave? You cannot come and tell me.
This week, yet another landlord-tenant board hearing seeking eviction was put off. The reason? Funyapi said there was a death in his family. No new hearings been scheduled. In the meantime, Folks is stuck with paying the mortgage and other utilities, a situation advocates for small landlords say they see frequently.
If they fall into arrears with a tenant not paying, the bank's going to come after them, within 3 months. The bank could say, you know what, we're going to take this property away from you.
Last week, we reported on Dika Raffle. She's been living on the 32nd floor of this Etobicoke condo building for several years. She owes owner Narinder Singh more than $46,000 for back rent and utilities.
The system lets her to be there.
Singh finally got an order requiring her to move out. But as we were reporting our story on her, she hired a lawyer, and on Tuesday the Landlord and Tenant Board ordered a stay of that eviction, meaning she can remain indefinitely.
It's not a surprise. I wish it was.
Raffle had argued she fell behind in rent after she was twice hospitalized in 2022 and that she lacked a consistent income. Once he gets the condo back, Singh says he'll sell it. unwilling to be a landlord ever again.
We have housing providers who are making active plans to sell their properties.
Everything here is preventable when people understand they can't get away with it. Simple as that.
Yep, definitely not broken. And again, we haven't even touched crime, immigration, the corruption in the government itself with all the scandals that they've had and the money that they've wasted. But still, with all that being said, he still has the gall to say that Canada is not currently broken. I don't know. I'm gonna leave you guys with Pierre talking about him, and as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.
We have a new phenomenon, not seen since at least the Great Depression, where middle-class people are becoming homeless. Fully employed carpenters and nurses living in parking lots, in cars, in Canada. 8 years ago, this would have been unimaginable. What happened? Justin Trudeau happened. That's what happened. Now we learn the news that people are leaving Canada in record numbers. Canada used to be a beacon of hope. People around the world would clamor to get into our doors. Now, when they arrive, they look around and say, what happened to this place after 8 years? And they flee for the exits. And who can blame them? Because after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, everything feels broken. No, after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, everything is broken.